Hello and welcome back to Chasing Excellence, a show about chasing what truly matters. My name is Patrick Cummins, here as always with Ben Bergeron. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Patrick. How are you?
Good. We're going to zoom back into the past a little bit this time around, and then we'll come back to present day. We've got, in 2017, you filmed a whiteboard talk for some members of your gym where you laid out what we call, I don't know if you actually called it this, but we called it the teardrop model. And it's the teardrop model maybe of public health, might be the simplest way to put it. And so I don't know why I was going through the YouTube channel and I found it, and people, when we put it out, a lot of people responded to it. And so I watched it and I was like, this is kind of interesting. So I shot you and I was like, hey, do you want to talk about this, or do you want to update it a little bit? So here's what I think would be fun to do. We're going to jump into the original 2017 talk. It's about, 10 or 12 minutes or something like that. I'm going to listen to that, and then we're going to come back on the other side. I'm just going to see if there's anything you want to update and see where the conversation goes, have a short conversation on the other side of it. Cool?
Cool. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Excited
so
to listen to
let us jump into, like I said, 2017, Ben, with the teardrop model of public health.
I want to share with you guys a little bit about this paradigm shift that I've had in our overall approach to what we're trying to create. And what I think is interesting is I think that this stems nicely into where the general public is and where everyone is in line with kind of like our vision, our thoughts, and our philosophies. So my mission, my goal, and my purpose is to create a family, you guys, of humble, hungry, happy people that are void of disease and live at full capacities into their 90s. That's really what excites me, and it really is. The people that have been close to me, and you guys have heard me talk about this so much. It's not about six packs or winning the CrossFit games. It's really about this longevity play. And here's the interesting part about this, is I kind of use this teardrop shaped model to kind of exemplify where we are in this. And it's a teardrop on purpose because it's a little bit sad. Okay, so here's the deal. There's about 5% of the population, and this is my guesstimations. This has nothing to do with studies or true demographics or surveys or anything else. This is just me throwing numbers to create an example and give some poignancy to what I'm talking about. I think there's a very small population, maybe about 5% of the US population, maybe the world, that get it. That they get it, right? These people are eating real food, not too much. They're doing functional movements at high intensity. Now that sounds a lot like CrossFit, but there's probably people out there that aren't doing CrossFit that still get it. We're not worried about those people. We're not worried about most of you guys in here. Some of us in here get it, and some of us are still like haven't totally drank the Kool-Aid type just yet. But the people that have, the people that are eating clean, and they're eating the right amounts, and they're focusing on their sleep and lowering their stress levels, and they're working hard in the gym 5 or 6 days a week. We got it. We're not going to get sick at the same rates as everybody else. That's the deal. It's not about we are going to look better on the beach and we're going to perform better in the open. We're going to do that as well, but that is a side effect. It's symptomatic of what we're really doing. Now there's another population that are trying really hard. This is where I was, and I gave this talk this morning, and I had about 5 or 6 people come up to me afterwards and be like, that was me, that are trying really hard. But these are the people that are just misinformed. They're trying and they're doing the right things, but they just don't totally get it. Me, when I was doing Ironman triathlons and having Gatorades and Cliff Bars and goos all throughout the day to fuel my activity. These are people that are doing Gatorades, they're doing fat-free bagels, having Cliff Bars, drinking soy milk, and juicing. They're running marathons, doing bodybuilding, Pilates, and bar class. They're doing it. They're working hard. They're sacrificing a lot in the kitchen and spending time at the gym. They're doing all the hard stuff. They just aren't quite as informed. They haven't had the curtain pulled back yet. Unfortunately, these people might be moving the needle a little bit, but they're not moving it nearly as far as we would hope them that they actually could be doing. Then there's a huge population, the majority, maybe 70% of America. And this makes sense because 7 out of 10 people in America die needlessly from chronic disease. Chronic disease are many forms of cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes, and the list goes on. There's about 31 chronic diseases. The crazy part about that is that they're not, for the most part, genetic or environmental. It's not a matter of luck, they're behavioral. Unfortunately, this huge population doesn't see that. They don't get it. These are people that are saying working out and eating clean is only about looking good. Disease is about luck or genetics. If I get sick, that's what medication's for. Really, it's a sad thing that they haven't been opened up to this yet. It's not about looking good. It's not about six packs. It's not about the open. The reason we are here, the reason we exist, is so that you guys be kicking it with your grandkids when you're 88 years old. Not a hindrance to the family, a huge bonus and plus, where the kids want to go visit grandma and grandpa. That's what we're really trying to create. And the cool thing is, we're doing it. We have, in Greg Glassman's word, an elegant solution to the world's most vexing problems, i.e. chronic disease, disguised as a sport. So cool. It looks like we're coming in here and playing games. What was your score today? Did I beat you? Did I win? What was the competition? I'm getting better and all that stuff. By numbers and working out and having fun. Yet we're the only people, and you can talk about it, is it the workouts or is it the nutrition or is it the lifestyle? The answer is yes. It's all three of those things combined. It's not one thing by itself, but together, the cool thing is, we're the only people doing this. It's really crazy. The other crazy part about that is that huge, vast majority of the people, it's not like the couch potatoes, and it's not the people that are just like, I don't care. It is our schools, our government, the medical community, and the general population. It's a long battle we're up against because it's wrought with this idea that medicine will save us, and it's all, we cure it, and there is no such thing as prevention because it's just a genetic or a luck play. Now, there is a small percent of the population as well down here that's like, screw it. And we're not going to change these people. These people that are still smoking cigarettes, they have donuts for breakfast every day, and they go to McDonald's every day for lunch. They know that stuff is bad for them, and they do it anyway. Here's my take, is these people up here that got it, in terms of their behavior, they're doing it well, and they have the knowledge, so everything they do is moving the needle in the right direction. The people here that are trying, they have good behavior. They're trying really hard. They just don't have, it hasn't been pulled back. They think Gatorade is what they should be fueling themselves on. And they believe that holding a stretch for 90 minutes is what's going to get them fitter. These are people that kind of get sucked into maybe like some infomercial type things. Down here, the behavior is bad and the knowledge is bad. And we're just like, huh? They just don't get it at all just yet. And if you want to think about that, schools. What are schools feeding our kids every day for lunch? I was just talking with one of our members who sends their kid to a very elite private school. The private school, after every single meal, including snacks, gives their kids brownies after the snack. After the lunch, they give them cheesecake. This is what they're feeding it, giving it to them. They're giving their kids cheesecake every single day. The medical community. My mother-in-law went into the hospital for a diabetic reaction. After they regulated her blood sugar by pumping her full of insulin, and they got her back to baseline, they gave her her first meal, which was macaroni and cheese, apple juice, and Jell-O. Guess what happened? Right? Shocker. But what do? That's no problem, because we treat it with more insulin. I was talking to somebody else this morning, and another member came up, and they were saying that their wife went in, and when their wife went in for a surgery, I think it was on their elbow, they said, what would you like for your meal? And they chose their meal, and they said, what would you like to drink? And they said, water. And they said, their response was, you know that we have soda. We have Sprite, and we have Coke, and we have diet sodas as well. Wouldn't you prefer that? Now, there's also the general population, because this is what we've all been thinking, this is what we've been taught. Now, I'm not here to say this is everybody. There are some schools that get it, and they're doing a phenomenal job. And that's amazing. And there are some mayors and governors and some lobbyists and some people that are doing things for our government that aren't buying into the food pyramid and 6 to 12 servings of grain every day. They're doing an amazing job. And are there nurses and doctors that get it and are doing an amazing job? Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's just a real small majority. We are up against a big uphill battle. So what I believe is these people up here, in terms of the change, these people, we don't have to worry about these people. They're doing it. We got them. Most of you guys. The people down here, they're doing the hard part already. They're already making the change in the kitchen and the gym and making sacrifices. All we have to do is pull back the curtain a little bit and show them the better way, and they can change in an hour, a day, a week, a month, or whatever. That's going to be an easy change. We get them in here, you talk to them about it, and they'll do it. This down here, the change is going to be at least a decade, if not generational. I believe that we're about 10 years away, but if you guys remember, about 10 years ago in the 90s, we were talking about low fat. And now, just now, fast forward 10 to 15 years, now we're starting to realize it's the sugar play. Everyone that was here from day one knows that we were talking about sugar from day one. So it takes about 10 years, at least a decade, to make some dent. I feel like we made some dent. So in another 10 years, we might have swung these things a little bit. But I believe that we are, at worst, probably a generation away. I think if we teach our kids the right stuff, our kids grow up and they change this stuff. Because then they become the ones that are the doctors and the nurses. They become the teachers and the educators. They become the politicians and the policymakers. The people down here, we're not going to change them. It's just the deal. They are the people that know it's bad for them, and they're just making those choices anyway. We're not going to put our efforts down there because it's a futile effort. My hope is that you guys, as the indoctrinated ones, fully take realization that we don't need to be here. Hopefully no one's here. That we move up to here at least, that we're all trying really hard. And then from there, as long as we're all trying really hard, if we can really get to the point where we're making these little tweaks and movements here and there, we get to this spot where we are doing exactly what we hope to be doing, which is building a family of humble, hungry, happy people, void of disease, that kick ass into their 90s.
All right, so like I said at the start, we're going to have a quick chat about maybe what we think about when we hear that talk 6 or 7 years later. But first, let's say thanks to a few sponsors who help us make the show possible. We're brought to you this time around by Magic Spoon. If you're looking for a delicious way to start your day without totally blowing your nutrition, let me introduce you to Magic Spoon, the cereal that takes you back to your childhood with every crunchy bite. You can get $5 off your next order by heading to magicspoon.com/excellence. I grew up loving cereal, but as I got older, I realized that most cereal should actually be put in the candy aisle, but not Magic Spoon. It's packed with 13 grams of protein and 0 grams of sugar per serving, making it perfect for anyone living a health-conscious lifestyle. But it's not just cereal. Magic Spoon has expanded into high-protein treats. These crispy, crunchy, and airy bars are fantastic for a quick snack with flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. They're available in grocery stores now, giving you 11 grams of protein on the go. You'll love Magic Spoon treats after a workout or as a quick snack on a busy day. They offer great flavor and texture, helping you stay fueled throughout your day. Remember, you can get $5 off at magicspoon.com/excellence. So hold on to the dream and enjoy a simple, high-quality cereal experience with Magic Spoon. We're also brought to you this time around by the Defender series of vehicles. Are you ready to embrace the impossible and explore your way with the legendary Defender series of vehicles? You can design your Defender at LandRoverUSA.com. The new Defender is engineered to meet challenges head-on, whether you're navigating city streets or tackling rugged terrain. The Defender's unstoppable capability and modern design make it an icon of adventure. The SUV is fully equipped for 21st century explorations, featuring advanced technologies like 3D surround cameras with clear sight, ground view, and an intuitive PV Pro infotainment system. These features let you see the road ahead and make every drive an exhilarating experience. With its legendary capability both off-road and on, the Defender is reimagined for a new generation of explorers. Remember, you can design and build your Defender at LandRoverUSA.com. Visit today and learn more about the Defender and explore the full lineup. Your adventure awaits.
I can't help but envision myself like driving a Land Rover and eating a big bowl of cereal at the same time.
Oh, or somebody else driving you in the Land Rover while you in the passenger.
That's not what I was envisioning. I was envisioning like living my best life. Like, you know, like one of those big, huge, like serving size bowls that people put like a big fruit salad in. But that filled with like all these like cereals, and it's, you know, spilling as I'm going through like the Moab desert.
Mountains, yeah, or the desert. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all for that road trip. Let's do it. Sign me up for that. All right. I forgot to mention when we first played this talk from 2017, we called and this is where I'm going to start. We called the video "What We're Doing When We Do CrossFit." So with that in mind, with the original talk sort of in our heads, where do you want to start? Like, what do you think about, say, 5 or 6 years later? Do you hear that and think, oh gosh, I was wrong there? Or do you feel like, I nailed it?
So when I say like what we're doing CrossFit, I don't think it's, I mean, like when you walk into the gym and you pick up a barbell, that's not what the talk is. The talk is like what this movement is about, what like this revolution is about, what the changing the scope and the face of what fitness and health is about. So when I say we are what we're doing when we're doing CrossFit, I mean that as a global movement initiative type thing, where we're trying to change the way people approach and view health. I think that the thing that's changed, obviously, like the percentages are there as just placeholders. And we're not actually saying like this is how many people, 5% do this and all the rest. It's just to paint a picture. I think that the biggest thing that's come to light that maybe the rest of the country, world, community, I don't know, but the norm 10 years ago was what this is kind of alluding to is a little bit of this sick care versus health care. And that's a little bit what I would, so I would double down on one thing, and which I'll get to. And then the other part is this new interjection of, and maybe it's one and the same, but that middle bubble of like, it takes a long time for that to change. And the industry is still set up. As much as we know now, the whole medical community is still set up for treatment, not prevention. We can't help you until you are sick. And what this talk is basically saying is there are some people that are doing the hard work to prevent this, but they're just missing it by a little bit. And this, again, I put myself at the front of that line. You know, I was doing all sorts of endurance stuff, Ironman triathlons, because I thought that was the pinnacle of health and performance. And when the curtain got pulled back a little bit and you actually understand what drives health and big, underlined, bold, well-rounded fitness is the driver of health. So what is fitness? Fitness is just your work capacity. That's all it is your ability to perform physical tasks. And you want to be able to perform those regardless of what the task is. Lifting up hundreds and hundreds of pounds to running 400 meters very, very fast to putting 60 pounds on your back and hiking it for 12 hours. Like no matter what the task is, we won't be able to do that. Well, that's what fitness is your work capacity, which is very easy to measure. It's very, or at least I should say very simple to measure. If that is fitness, what is health? Health is nothing more than your fitness across your age. That's what it is. So what are the drivers of that? Well, a big part is like the only thing I talked about in this talk was really about your training and what you did in the gym and what you did in the kitchen. The other obvious ones after the 10 years of this conversation is also, which is what CrossFit was focused on. CrossFit's continuum, CrossFit's pyramid only included nutrition as the base, then metabolic conditioning, then gymnastics, then weightlifting, then sport. It was only the kitchen and the gym. The thing I would interject now is, well, that is certainly big, huge parts of it, but we also have to be talking about if you're doing those two things, but you're only sleeping 4 hours a night, I don't think we're going to have health, right? And if we are doing those things, but you are living in a place with toxic relationships and so on, if you live in a smog-ridden city, you never see the sun and so on. So everyone knows that part of the conversation. The thing I would double down on a little bit is just how slow it takes for things to change. And that's really where, we can, that first bucket of people we talked about, that first 5%, we got them. It's awesome. The people doing high intensity, the people that listening to this podcast, right? Like, awesome, phenomenal. We can always sharpen the axe, but we got the axe and we're chopping down the tree. The next group is the ones that what this podcast is about, is trying to educate in terms of, because it says organic doesn't mean it's healthy. Because it says gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy. Because it says low fat doesn't mean it's healthy. Because you bought it at Whole Foods doesn't mean it's healthy. Because you can run a marathon doesn't mean you have fitness. Because you can squat 600 pounds doesn't mean you have fitness. So this is where it gets into like this, the well-rounded aspect to that. We need to do a better job educating that crew that's doing the hard things. Like, they're doing the hard things. They just could do it in a way that's a little bit more productive. The next big bucket, which is the majority, is I came across something recently, and I'm taking this for what it's worth. I heard this. I haven't done the research to know if it's true, but it was a research doctor in the Alzheimer's world, which is a very, very hard topic right now. Cognitive decline is obviously a huge issue, and neurodegeneration just like affecting so many people. It's hard to find somebody that hasn't been affected knows somebody else that's been affected by this. And he was saying that, it takes 17 years for something to go through trial to actually be available as a mainstream, publicly accepted treatment or cure. That's so long to be able to go through that. Well, that's just like for the medical community to do this. And now I'm not saying like to bring a drug from trial to market. I know it's faster than that. He's saying for like a big, like basically, he was talking about like amyloid in the brain being accepted as the cause of Alzheimer's. And he's saying, no, it's essentially symptomatic, and it's the mechanisms. You have to understand the mechanisms of like, this might be thing that's correlated to it, much like LDL and HDL is a biomarker of this. It doesn't mean that it causes this. He's saying it takes 17 years for that widespread understood principle to actually change. Well, to get to actually change, that's a long time. To get to actually change in the literature that's being presented at these medical schools, they literally have to rewrite the textbooks. And for how fast now, especially now, how fast the technology and how fast the science is going, by the time these come out, that's going to be rewritten. And by the time that's going to be rewritten. So it's happening so fast now in terms of the sick care and true health care, that the mission we were on then was, let's change the kitchen and the gym. I think that's, we're now 7 years later. That's at least we're creating dents. Like, that's not unknown. It may not be widespread, but it is not unknown like it was then. It's kind of crazy to think about. But right now, like really high level, people like the Insta famous doctors are like, no, it is about high intensity interval training. No, it is about eat nuts, seeds, little fruit, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. It is about, all the stuff that we were talking about for a very, very long time. And I think that it's exciting. I think that we are actually on the precipice. The conversations that my members are having in the gym 2 decades ago was like, whoa, fat's not that bad? You're saying it's sugar? Like, we take that for granted now. But like when Bloomberg changed the rule about like it's illegal to sell big gulps of soda in New York City or whatever he did, that was like kind of trailblazing. And now everyone kind of accepts that sugar is not a good option. Now, whether it's toxic, everything's like dose dependent for sure. But that's like, we're getting along there pretty well. I think that we're also getting to the point where people are like, hey, this high intensity interval training thing is not weird. We're kind of getting there. It's not going to be in the schools. It's not going to be in the medical. It's not going to be in the textbooks. The government's not going to do it, but the conversations that are happening, they're steering a lot more towards prevention than treatment for disease. That, I think, is very exciting. I think that we've moved a lot farther in the last 7 years since I gave that talk. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say that more than I expected, but I'm a realist. I'm not disappointed with the progress we've made. I think a lot of people will be upset, but like the amount of people that have heard of keto is like wild. You having a conversation with people about keto in 2014, like people would have no idea what you were talking about.
Yep.
It's cool that that's like what we're understand, and people even understand it. Like people understand keto and forget about just like so I'm going to have olive oil and steak and bacon and that could be healthy. Like they're like, no, it's like, I understand kind of the mechanisms that are downstream of that and the reasons for it. And that, the amount of people that are kind of talking about the stuff that you do in your 30s and 40s and 50s is actually the thing that affects you in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's not you just like, do your thing and then like, oh, the genetic game gotcha. Oh, yep. Bad luck. Sorry. It's like, no, this stuff is formulating over the past 2 to 3 decades. That's for all of them. They're all there. They're all like, we all have certain genetic predispositions for any one of the 4, big, what does Tia call them? The 4 horsemen: chronic disease, cognitive decline, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. Like we all have predispositions for those. But it's our daily behaviors that actually determine which of the light switches in the fuse box get turned on and off. Your genes are not your destiny, and your genes are striving so hard to figure out the environment in which they're living in, and that environment is dictated by how healthy you keep this bones and sack of meat that we walk around Earth in.
I think my one follow-up is, we can wrap it up on this, is, again, like I said when we started this, like this is what we call that was, what we're doing when we're doing CrossFit or some version of that. Have you seen any other place or any place that is having this conversation more effectively or more powerfully than inside of a CrossFit gym? Or is that still the best environment, the best tool that we collectively have to further this conversation, to deepen this conversation, to not get lost in the weeds of this conversation, but in fact focus on the things that matter, those first principles that we've talked about before? Is this still the purview of the CrossFit gym in your eyes in terms of like doing this effectively?
No, and actually don't think the CrossFit gyms are doing it very well. I think they're doing the training piece as well as anybody else in the world. Like that's where we've over-indexed. The CrossFit gyms are not talking enough about nutrition. And that's like, in terms of what is like, that is inside the CrossFit theoretical development of an athlete. The base, the bottom, people are talking about like, you should be strength biased. No, you should be conditioning biased. It's like, nope, we should be nutrition biased. That's the thing at the bottom. So we should be doing so much more to help people with their nutrition. In terms of the 5 factors and all the different behaviors, it's the ones that when people like you're meeting them where their expectations are. People don't walk into a gym and expect you to talk to them about their purpose and their values and the relationships that they have with their spouse, and does their job set them on fire? They certainly don't expect you to be talking about the story that you're telling yourself between your ears.
Yep.
And do you have a victim mindset? They're probably not even expecting you to talk to them about sleeping more. They are expecting you to talk to them about nutrition. They are. And if we're not doing that, we're doing a disservice. And I don't think most gyms are doing it well. We're getting probably an A to an A- in training. I would say that we are probably getting a C to a C-, not because we don't know the prescription, because we're just not leaning into enough in nutrition. And then we're probably getting D's and F's in the other 3 categories. So where do I think that this is being done the best? If it's not being done in CrossFit gyms, I think it's through this platform, through podcasts. I think podcasts are doing it the best. There's a couple recent books that are doing it decently. Peter Attia's Outlive. It's a little too dense on the science side, a little light on the practical, but it's still a great resource. But I think like the podcasts, when you get into the little ecosystem of this, what this kind of like people are sharing similar things to this, it's really powerful. I think that those, and obviously you have to work towards who do I trust? That's always the case. You have to vet and you have to go like, I'm going to trust this over that. I'd say if there's some sort of agenda behind it, if they're essentially trying to sell their system, sell their test kit, sell their supplements, I'm not saying don't trust them, but raise a second eyebrow. And then kind of go like, just do it and just what resonates and what does seem trustworthy. And that's kind of where I would say that's where the best sharing of information is happening in the podcast world, podcast platform, podcast ecosystem. What is this? Podcast what?
Medium.
That's the word I'm looking for. Podcast medium.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess when I was thinking about, our CrossFit gyms, the right environment or the right context, I guess maybe what I meant was, because I agree with you that, in terms of your assessment of these things, I guess what I meant was potentially our CrossFit gyms, and it's okay. You answered the question I asked, not the one that was in my head, but potentially because of the nature of the CrossFit gym, because of the relationships in the CrossFit gym, our CrossFit gyms potentially the place where we can do what we've done over the last 10 years, twice as good over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on the podcast and the media, and I think there's lots of power there that wasn't there when we started this podcast. But I think in real life is kind of what I'm thinking about.
We as CrossFit gyms, in Greg Glassman's words, can serve as the lifeboats. We are the ones that can, and the swim coaches is in the better analogy. Like we don't need to be the Coast Guard. Maybe I'm mixing analogies. The doctors are the ones out there rescuing people who are drowning.
Yep.
CrossFit gyms are in such a great position to be the swim coaches. Let's teach people how to swim so they don't drown. Now, there's going to be accidents, and people even that know how to swim are going to need to be rescued, and that's always the case. So we're always going to need doctors in the medical community. But what we can serve as, I really do believe, it's going to happen on 2 fronts. It'll happen on the concierge medical front, concierge physicians. Problem is that's very expensive and exclusive at this point. There's a lot of people that are trying to work that to bring it to a scalable model. I think it's a fair amount away, probably 5 years at minimum. CrossFit gyms should have been doing this 5 years ago, right? We are so well positioned, even better positioned than the concierge medicine, because even concierge medicine, if you have a crazy close relationship with them, you might be talking to them once or twice a month, maybe. Whereas the CrossFit gym, you have the opportunity to see them for 5 or 6 hours a week. That's a crazy level of engagement that you have the opportunity to help shape someone's future.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Let's leave it there. Thank you, bud. That was fun. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. Visit chasingexcellence.email for even more. Get on the free newsletter list. We send out some emails every week. In those, we'll send you a link to a form, and you can ask your questions, and you can get them into future episodes. We thank you in advance. Ben and I will be back soon for a brand new episode of Chasing Excellence.